Welcome, Jack.
Thank you, Andrea and Gary and Amy and team. It's awesome to be with Gary V and all of you.
Jack, do we have Jack's Twitter handle? Does he have a Twitter handle? Jack, how do you roll on that world?
You know, this is that you're forgetting my swearing off of social media.
You're right. I recall, which is still my favorite thing between our first of all, just so everybody knows, this is literally one of my favorite human beings, not in business, human beings. Actually, to that point, Jack, tell everybody how we met real quick and then we'll go into it.
We met friggin' on a panel. We were both going to speak at an event in Florida to a bunch of New York dealers, and we actually met on a beach afterwards, trying to grab some food. And next thing you know, we were sitting around and had a conversation of about 50 people standing around, just the two of us completely just hanging, getting to know one another. And then the rest is history of a great relationship with a great guy.
So for everybody who's watching, Jack is one of my favorite executives for this reason. It is very, very, very hard. Actually, our next guest, this is a fun one for me. Our next guest exudes this as well, and I've known her in a couple different chapters. It's hard to move things in big companies, even small companies. It's hard to move things, and it takes a certain DNA structure as an individual. It's really easy for me to be fast and make moves because I don't have a board. I'm not publicly traded. I get to look myself in the mirror. Like, I can take a risk because I'm an entrepreneur with honestly, the way I've structured my companies with lack of investment or the investment I took from Steve Russ, like I have all the maneuverability. When you're a senior executive, even a CEO that's well-funded or with a board or things of that nature, it's hard to move and make change. Jack, you know, Vayner's done some business with Toyota, but watching Jack navigate, whether it was with us, which is only a small window into what I've seen, but just watching him from afar, whether it's some of the work he did with the Olympics and things of that nature, making things happen in a conglomerate. Jack, do you know how many employees there are in Toyota globally? Do you have a sense?
Oh my
you know that off the top of your head?
No, I don't have. It's
a lot.
Hundreds of thousands.
Making maneuvers in that type of org with that kind of legacy, with that kind of brand is hard. And I admire the effort. And I don't know, I'm really glad you're here, Jack. And so talk to me about COVID, pivoting, you know, like leadership. You know, when I think about you, some of the sports stuff, like when I think about you, even your voice, Jack, makes me think about this. You know, I think about leadership, you know, the way we talk about, you know, children, parenting, being fathers, you know, I think of you as such a really strong leader. How do you think about leadership and how does that play out in things like COVID or when innovation is needed? Because I do think there is a lot of innovation needed in the car space. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, Gary, and first, before I get to answer directly, I would just simply say thanks for having me on. And it's great to see you and to see you and your leadership. And I love what you're talking about, being able to maneuver and do something quickly. And what you have done and how you do it is an energizer to me as somebody who is in a corporate world. And it is a tougher, it's a larger ship to kind of maneuver, but the leadership qualities are always the same. And they're the same if you're a dad or a mom or whatever you're doing at home versus at work. And that is, are you true? Are you truly authentic? And do you have that character that keeps you being the same on a daily basis, right? Are you a person of character, a person of integrity, which you know is my primary word is integrity, being who you say you're going to be and being that every day. So when you look at this and what we've gone on here, I got to tell you, the COVID, the pivoting, this whole deal, I've said this 1,000 times, I think. I hate the situation of COVID. I hate what it's done to people and society and economies, all that. But I do have to admit, I actually love the leadership challenge because you find out about yourself and you find out about all the people that you're associated with, and you can quickly determine those who are really leaders and those who say stuff about leading, right? There's people who are leading. Now, I'll take your compliment. I receive it. I'm always maturing on a day-by-day basis and gaining more skills and more just belief in how we can help others. And so some people use that word leading. For me, it's about every person that's in front of me at a moment is how can I try to help them make their lives better and more enjoyable, more successful, more advantageous, anything of value. And that's what drives me. And so that's been even more heightened here at the COVID-19 headquarters of the world.
Everybody's watching hashtag marketing for the now. Everybody's watching hashtag marketing for the now. As with every episode, I'm kind of reading Twitter along the way to incorporate questions. So I want you to be part of the show. We're seeing about 5% of the audience engaging. I want to push that to 10 here. Jack, let me go to another place that I've been really curious about. One of the things that struck me is, and big shout out to my good friend Eitan Sugarman. It's funny that I thought about him when I think about you on this. I think about individuals who are just genuinely good at relationships. You know, sometimes we razz each other like, why were you in my town and didn't say hello? You know, I'm like, hey, you're at the car show. But when I think about you as a relationships person, back to integrity and things of nature, knowing that there's a lot of entrepreneurs and executives and marketers, just, you know, I think EQ, soft skills are far greater and more important in the business world than people realize. I think it's starting to build momentum. You know, I'm an aggressive alpha kind of competitive dude, but I talk about things like empathy and kindness. And when I think about you, I think about relationship. And I think a lot of people can learn from this. When I say the word relationship or how you think about that, just talk about how you view that. Because even when we were navigating, trying to make some things happen together, and, you know, I always appreciated you having empathy to some of the humans that were potentially roadblocks, because that's the same thing I do. That's how you actually get it done. You know, even when you had the power to trump what they had to say, I'm curious how you think about relationships, because I think of you, and that's one of the biggest words in the word cloud when I think of you as a person. Thoughts on that? Something to help people watching?
Yeah, I would tell you I think is what drives me, and I'm still learning, right? It's like, even when you have brought something into who you are as a character, you're still developing it and you're still getting better at it. And if you ever think you've arrived, then that's pride that gets in the way, that I think is actually really hurtful. So to me, the word relationship to me, I don't know if you even, I don't think I've shared it with you. My wife and I have this kind of couples motto. It's called Life's About Relationships. That's what we tease each other all the time. And that's what it is. The word, or the way to describe it for me, is truly thinking of the other person more important than yourself.
Yep.
And while that is simple, to carry that out takes a willingness by you or me or anybody on this meeting to take back your pride a little bit. It doesn't mean you're not proud of work that you do, not proud of giving your best effort. It's still about putting the other person more important than yourself. I mean, it's what, Gary, you and I think even from the time we met, and then we had these several, on stage engagements together and these different things. I want to hear and I want to promote Gary, because Gary is going to keep leading others, and Gary has something to add to my life by me adding to his. And when it's back and forth like that, where you put the other person more important, you both win. It doesn't matter how many people in a relationship. Yeah, that's what you got to go with.
But real quick, everybody who's listening, I really think you need to factor this in. I call it 51-49. You know, when you give 51 of the 100 points, when you go 50, you're caught up, Jack. I see you looking to see your pause. You're here. I see you. When it's 51-49, when you give more than you take, the key is when you're talented enough to know what to do with the 49, that's when you win. I think a lot of people are takers because they think they need 8. I mean, I watch people try to beat me in the negotiation or the deal every time, and I laugh. I smile in my own head, because I'm like, okay, I see you. This is what you need in the short term. But what we don't realize is the person that's giving always wins in the end. One, she or he is fulfilled by that giving. B, they actually ultimately have all the leverage. Yeah, I think it's fascinating. Go ahead.
It is fascinating. And I would simply say is in that 51-49 comparison, that idea of giving 51, I'd almost challenge you to say is a different calculation, because I understand it, and mathematically yours is more accurate than mine's going to be. But I'm always about, you give 101. You give 100% of who you are, you will have the opportunity to get 100% back from somebody. But when you don't give them your 100%, you're not always so sure what you're going to get back. And I think you have to give yourself away.
Let me get this in. I think it's a great point. I love that I didn't consider us math guys, but I'm excited we've gone there. Let me take it somewhere else, because I want to. How does how do you help your dealers during this time? You know, because I think there's people who've got sales teams, they've got franchisees, you know, so I think you've got a dynamic where, you know, we're not gonna have enough time to go into how the big brands work with their dealerships, but how do you think about helping dealers during this time? Because this is challenging. This is something you've never had to deal with.
Never. And I would like to not have to deal with it again if it's okay with you.
Yeah, I wish I had that kind of stuff. Go ahead.
However, I will say this, and just for clear, for Toyota, every dealership is privately owned, right? So we don't own any of our dealerships, okay? So our relationship with our dealers is the only way to be able to provide the end guest with the best experience. So when you say, what is it that I'm doing? My belief, in fact, the first week of COVID, I started something called a Jack Chat. And I just would film and send to them on a weekly basis encouragement, facts, knowledge, things they might not have heard about yet, things about COVID and protecting people. And my whole goal was very simple. And it turned into something I thought I'd just do once or twice. Well, it became the feedback from the dealers was, hey, thank you. So we've now done it for 17 straight weeks. And I think the overriding issue was, how can I help the dealers stay profitable, be encouraged to do the right thing for society, and 3 is give the guest experience. That's my motivation. Again, giving myself away. How can I help a group of 1,240 dealers be as successful as possible in the worst possible conditions? And that's what we go for.
Yep. I'm a huge fan of that. You know, for everybody who's watching, the insight there for me is like Jack has self-awareness. He realizes that he is truly a good leader. You know, he's not going to say because he's too humble. And I love what his execution was there, was he's like, look, let me lean into my strength. You know, I did the same thing. I went into hardcore one-on-ones and 1-on-12s and 1-on-5s, you know, and did an open Q&A forum when things really got intense in the culture and just answered with candor. Like, you know, I think leaning into the core strength back to self-awareness really plays out. Jack, I could do this for 15 hours, let alone 15 minutes. It's extremely good to see your face, and I hope you're super well.
Gary, you as well. Anytime you need a little more hanging out time on a phone or on a meeting or just anywhere, you just let me know, and I can't wait to be there.